Hey everyone, Vladimir is here with our multi-platform game development tutorial part 19. In this day, we're actually going to add a new game screen. And this game screen, what it's going to do is it's going to control what character the player picks. So yeah, later on we're going to introduce multiple characters for the player to pick. Each will have their own strengths. But, well, to do that, first we have to display the current character somewhere. So, this is actually what we're going to do. So yeah, without further ado, let us get to programming. And, well, the first thing that we are going to do is we need to create a new screen in our screens package. So let's create a new class. Let's call it character selection screen. Let's make it extend default screen, and well, first it will offer to create the default constructor. Press Alt Enter and it will create the basic constructor. Don't forget to make it public. Right, so what we are going to do, we want a screen where player chooses and later unlocks the character which he wants to play with. Well, firstly, I guess we'll need the button which starts the game, but to do that we need to add the stage to our screen. So let's add a new stage, we'll call it UI stage. This is going to be responsible for the UI controls like labels, buttons, and all display in this case. Libgdx offers a convenient methods to work with UI, and I see no reason why we shouldn't use them. So first things first, let's also introduce some kind of an index, current character, let's call it this thing, and it will point out to the currently selected character. Well, for now it points to 0 always because we only have one character, it's the player. But yeah, let's start with creating a fit viewport. This will keep the resolution but always fit to the screen. If screen is too stretched, it will add the black bars, but it's okay since our background is also going to be black. So, right, let's create a new fit viewport. I think the low resolution is good for our case because, well, our sprites are not exactly high res, so I think 160 to 120 is fine. Right. After that, let's create a new stage while using this viewport. And what we need to do is we need to set our new stage as an input processor. That means that all the next inputs are going to be forwarded to that stage. And it will be able to detect clicks on itself or button presses, which we don't need for now, but we might eventually. So first we override our render function, which we need to clear the screen. Let's just set the clear color as black, and then we just call GL clear, and we use GL20 GL color buffer bit. After that, we need to update our stage. We can do it by calling the act method, and we need to finally draw our stage, which we do by calling the draw method. So this should be it, but a good thing that we need to do is to add the dispose method. Remember, if you initialize any resources, you always need to care about getting rid of them. So what we're going to do is we're going to call the super dispose method. Let me zoom it in a bit. So the class is really simple so far. Just constructor, renderer, and dispose, but we also need to dispose of our stage and also set the input processor to null because our stage won't be available anymore and you don't want any weird errors which will be hard to track later. So do this. And finally, one thing that we need to do is we need to go to dodging hero Java class, and you see we're creating the new game screen. Throw that out and replace it by character selection screen. So if you run the game right now, and we're going to run the game right now, you're going to see a black screen. And that's fine, because this is our new dodging hero screen, which is used for character selection. So great news. Now let's just worry about, filling the screen with something. So first things first, we have the game. So I mean, somewhere behind there's a game. So I think it makes sense if we try to make a button that launches it. So let's make a function, void function prepare UI, which will be responsible for actually preparing the UI, as you might have guessed. Put its call at the end of character selection screen constructor, call it here, and what it is going to do is going to initialize the start button. So to initialize the start button, we need to define the start button style first. It's going to be a simple start text, but well, it also needs the font, it also needs the color. So let's do this, and we create the new text button style, leave the constructor empty, and after that define the font to, well, to the only font that we have. It's a game font, and font color, just make it white for now, just because we can. After that, we need to actually initialize our start button. We pass their string, well, start, and we pass there our button style. So theoretically, this should be it. We also need to add it to our stage by calling add actor and passing the start button to it. So technically, if you run it, it will work right now. Let me just demonstrate it to you. But you'll notice a few things that, well, it just is not in a good place. That's the first thing. And if you click on it, nothing happens. So we don't want that, obviously. What we want is, we need to add the positioning, and I think it makes sense to put it somewhere in the bottom of the screen. So let me call set position function. We pass, let's display it in the middle of the stage, so we need to calculate it. I'm taking the full width of the stage, then I subtract the width of the button, and then I divide it by 2, and we actually get the middle of the stage, somewhere where we need to place the button, so it would be located right exactly in the middle, which is a good thing. After that, regarding height, I think it's okay if we put it in somewhere in the lower part of the screen, and the coordinates on the stage actually go from bottom to up. So if we want it's somewhere in the bottom, I will take the height of their stage divided by 6, so 1/6 part of the stage is going to be used for the button location. We're going to test it a bit later, but since we're doing it already, let's just add a click listener. So the thing is, the clicks are handled by the special things called listeners. As soon as player clicks the button, some function is going to be executed. The listener is actually a class that we instantiate here, but we can override some of the functions, and I think it will make sense. The function which is responsible for the clicks there are two functions. One is touch up, the other one is touch down. The touch down is called when you click the button. The touch up is called when you release the button, and it makes sense to call it when you release the button, simply because, well, it feels like a completion. First you pressed it, but nothing happens, and then when you release it, something happens. I think it makes sense to me, but it might sound stupid. I'm okay with that. It worked for me so far. You can assign it to touch down. This is definitely a matter of taste. So touch up function, we need to put input and event. Excuse me. We need to pass the X or Y. You can look it up in the click listener. If you select click listener here, put the cursor here and press Ctrl B, it will move you to the native class of the click listener, of the parent class. And there's this touch up function, which has the parameters. I'm actually going to copy it and put it here and just add override just to know that we're overriding the function. And simple thing that we're going to do, we're going to dispose of the character selection screen and we're going to set the screen to the new game screen and we pass the game there. So nothing too complicated, but the listener thing, you need to understand what's going on. So if we run the game now, you see our start button is located in a much prettier place, and if we click it, the game starts, which is great, I think. So right, we have one part of the interface. Now let's just arrange the whole interface, and for this lesson this will be it. But after that we'll be working on, you know, actual character selection, actual character differences, and how we handle them. Right, so we'll need arrows that allow to scroll the character to the left and to the right, and to the display of character itself. Let's do everything in our populate UI, in prepare UI function. First, let's have the image from Gdx, hero sprite. We create a new image, we pass our player sprite, and that should be it. Again, we need to set a good position. I think in the middle of the screen will be alright. Set position, we take our width of the stage, we subtract the hero sprite width and we divide it by 2. Then we do the same with the height, minus hero sprite get height, and divide it by 2. We set the position of the button and then we add it to our stage. Add actor, hero sprite. So this will add the image, but let's take care of the arrows. First it's the next button, because I like watching in the future first and then the retrospective later. So let's take the next button, call it button style, next button. Use the same button style that we've used. Arrows will look the same, and arrange the position. Set position, let's say to the 5th, 6th, 5 parts from 6 parts to the right of the stage. Sorry, not my native language, don't know how to say it best, but it will do enough. So let's center it up there and do the same thing for the height. But for the height, I think it's okay if we just divide the height by 2. It will be alright. The text button, previous button, we're going to create the same text button, but it only shows back. We are going to use the same button style as before. We're going to set the position on the first part of the stage. We just divide the width of the stage by 6 and we know it's going to be on the left side, and the height is the same as the previous button, so I think it's okay. One thing that you obviously need to do is add the button to our stage. First the next button, then you add actor, don't confuse it with action. Add previous button, and after you do this, I think it's going to be alright. Let's run it. So yeah, we ran it. You see we have the first screen. I think we've achieved what we wanted to do, and this concludes this lesson. In the next lesson we're actually going to handle the multiple character selection. So stay tuned, and I'm looking forward to programming the game together with you. Vladimir is out. Cheers.